All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to untangle a family saga packed with secrets, ambition, and some seriously complicated relationships. We're exploring Susan Rieger's like mother, and trust me, this is not your typical family drama.
No, not at all.
And get this, it's told through a series of interviews, so you feel like you're putting the pieces together right alongside the characters.
It's like you're right there in the thick of it, uncovering layers of truth and hidden motivations, almost like you're sitting in on a family therapy session, except way more dramatic, of course.
Okay, so let's meet the woman at the heart of it all. Leela Pereira. She's this powerhouse newspaper editor in Washington, D.C., running the Globe. Think Anna Wintour, but for news. Sharp, ambitious, doesn't take no for an answer.
But beneath that tough exterior, there's a whole lot of complexity, a past that's shaped her. Her childhood was rough, marked by a demanding and sometimes even abusive father. It really instilled in her this fierce independence, almost like she had to build walls around herself just to survive.
There's this one scene that really stuck with me. As a child, Leela would actually steal money from her father just to visit her grandmother's grave after she passed away.
Oh, wow.
It's powerful, right?
It is. It really speaks volumes about her rebellious spirit and her deep need for connection, even if it was with someone who is no longer there.
Exactly. Even if it meant breaking the rules.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the complex dynamic between Leela and her three daughters, especially her youngest, Grace.
Oh, yeah, that mother-daughter relationship, definitely not smooth sailing.
Understatement of the year.
It really captures that longing Grace feels for a closer connection with her mother, which is, made even tougher by Leela's demanding career and frequent absences.
There's that detail about how Grace's question changed as she got older. It went from where's Leela to who's Leela?
Heartbreaking, isn't it? It's as if Grace just resigned herself to the fact that Leela would always be somewhat of a mystery, a distant figure she admired but couldn't fully grasp.
Right. And then things get even more complicated when Grace publishes a tell-all novel. Loosely based on their family, of course. Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
The Lost Mother, right? That title alone speaks volumes.
But then, bam, a real bombshell drops.
Oh, yeah.
Grace's aunt, Clara, discovers she was adopted, and her biological mother, Zelda, might still be alive.
Talk about a twist.
This revelation throws the entire family history into question.
It forces them to confront the past, to examine the stories they've been told, and the assumptions they've held for so long.
There's this image of Clara finding a box of her mother's belongings untouched for years. It's like all these buried secrets right there in that box.
Almost as if the past itself is reaching out, demanding to be acknowledged.
So naturally, Grace, with Clara by her side, embarks on this quest to uncover the truth about Zelda.
They dive headfirst into family lore, chasing down any lead that might shed light on Zelda's fate.
It becomes a parallel storyline, weaving together the past and present.
Raising questions about identity, belonging, and the power of family ties, even those that have been severed or hidden.
We even get a clue from Joe's mother, Frances. She mentions a former GM employee who might know something about what happened to Zelda.
It's like a breadcrumb trail, leading to a hidden truth.
I'm hooked for sure.
And as Grace digs deeper, you can't help but notice the parallels between her life and Leela's. It's like history is repeating itself.
Totally. Both women are incredibly driven, independent, carving out successful careers in a male-dominated world.
It brings up that fascinating theme of generational echoes. Like certain patterns of behavior are passed down, even if unintentionally.
Like mother, like daughter.
Exactly. Both Leela and Grace, despite all their success, they struggle with vulnerability, allowing themselves to be emotionally open.
Wait a minute. Are we saying that Aldo, the man who practically demonized Zelda, is the one who revealed this truth?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's mind-blowing.
It makes you question everything, right?
For sure. About him and his motivations. Is he trying to clear his conscience? Or is there something more to it?
Right. It's like we're peeling back layers of an onion here. And with each layer, the story gets more complex and more intriguing.
Absolutely. And amidst all this family drama, there's another character we need to talk about. Ruth, Grace's college roommate and confidant. She brings such a unique perspective to the story.
Ruth, she's that steady presence, the one who observes everything, with this quiet wisdom.
The calm in the storm.
Exactly. Offering support and understanding, without judgment.
What I find fascinating about Ruth is her ability to listen and to draw out these intimate details from others.
Yeah, the gift.
It's this talent that leads her to a successful podcasting career, which makes you wonder, spin-off, sequel, focusing on Ruth.
Now that's an idea. I'd listen to that.
Me too. But for now, we're sticking with like mother, like mother. One of the things I love about this novel is that even though it's fiction, it feels so real, so relatable.
It's the characters, right?
Hmm.
And how it explores these universal themes that resonate with all of us.
Like what?
Family relationships, the weight of secrets, the search for identity.
And let's not forget that ending. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. We finally get some answers about Zelda, but not without some serious twists and turns along the way.
The resolution is so satisfying, but also thought-provoking. It leaves you thinking about the choices we make and the consequences, how we come to terms with the past.
Speaking of choices, remember how Grace found that former GM employee, the one who might have known Zelda?
Yeah, the one who asked if Zelda had come to her wedding.
Such a weird question.
Right.
It turns out he was the head of HR, meaning he probably had access to Aldo's records.
Interesting.
And he specifically asked Frances, Joe's mother, if Zelda had been at their wedding.
That's a tiny detail, but
It raises so many questions, right?
it does. Like, there's even more to the story than what's on the page.
Exactly.
That's the mark of a great novel, one that stays with you long after you've finished it.
Okay, everyone, get ready, because things are about to get even more intense.
The interview with Aldo is up next. And let me tell you, it is a doozy.
We'll be back in a flash with part 2.
Welcome back. We left off with Grace, about to meet Dennis Berman Herbert's son. Remember, this meeting could rewrite the entire family tree.
Right, because Dennis could be related to Aldo, meaning Zelda and Herbert might actually be Aldo and Leela's parents.
Exactly. A family reunion nobody expected.
So tell me, what happens when Grace finally meets Dennis?
Okay, picture this. Grace walks into this law office in Detroit, takes a deep breath, and just lays it all out. Zelda Herbert. The letter. The genealogy research. Everything.
Wow, I bet Dennis was floored.
Oh, absolutely. And just to add to the drama, Heidi walks in right in the middle of it all. Talk about a family bombshell.
Double the shock. So what happens next? Do they rush out to get a DNA test?
You'd think so, right? But Dennis is hesitant. He's not sure he's ready to face the truth, to potentially upend his entire identity.
I get it. It's a lot to take in.
But being a lawyer, she's all about the facts. So she convinces Dennis to take the test.
Yeah.
And they both send off their samples.
The anticipation is killing me. And what do the results show?
The results confirm that Dennis and Clara are half-siblings. They share the same mother. It's official. Zelda had another family.
Wow. So if Aldo isn't their father, then who is?
Get this. Frida, Herbert's wife, admits that she and Herbert adopted Dennis. Shortly after they got married, another layer of secrets.
This family tree is getting more and more complicated.
It really is.
But the big question remains, what happened to Zelda? Why did she disappear?
That's the million-dollar question. The one Grace is determined to answer. She goes straight to Frida Herbert's widow.
Makes sense. But wouldn't Frida be completely in the dark about Zelda?
You'd think so, right?
Right.
But remember, this story is full of surprises. It turns out Frida had no idea about Herbert's past relationship with Zelda.
Oh my gosh, talk about a shock.
Right. But Frida being Frida, she handles it with grace and strength.
She's a powerhouse.
But while Frida might be taking it in stride, Dennis is struggling. He feels betrayed, like his whole life has been a lie.
Of course. And then there's the added weight of learning about Aldo's abusive behavior.
It's a lot to process.
For sure. But at least Dennis and Clara are starting to connect.
That's right. They're forming a bond over their shared past and this unexpected revelation.
It's a reminder that even in the most complicated situations, family can be a source of strength.
Absolutely. So, let's shift gears for a moment. Remember how Joe was planning on separating from Leela?
Oh yeah, what happened with them?
Well, life threw them a curveball. Leela got sick and ended up in the hospital.
Oh
It
no.
was a major crisis. But in a way, it brought Joe and Leela closer together. Joe stepped up. He took care of her read to her, supported her through her recovery.
Aw, that's sweet.
It was a wake-up call for Leela, too. You know, she'd always been so focused on her career
Yeah.
that she'd neglected her personal relationships.
So did they stay together?
They did. Joe moved back in. They decided to give their marriage another shot.
I love a happy ending.
Me too. Seems like Leela learned a valuable lesson about work-life balance.
And speaking of strong women, let's check in with Ruth. Last we heard she was killing it with her podcasts at the Press Gang.
Oh, she's definitely on her way to building a media empire. Her podcasts are a huge hit. But amidst all this success, Ruth hasn't forgotten about her personal life.
She's engaged to Nico, right?
That's right. And guess who's footing the bill for the wedding?
Let me guess. Frances.
Bingo. Joe's mother. the woman with a heart of gold and impeccable taste.
That wedding must have been amazing.
Oh, it was. Lavish affair at a gorgeous estate, chorus line tango performance wedding dress that probably cost a fortune.
Sounds like a fairy tale wedding.
It was.
Hmm.
But beyond the glamour, there's a sweet detail. Ruth asked Doug Marshall to officiate, her boss and mentor.
That's lovely. It symbolizes how her personal and professional life are coming together.
Exactly. Now, what about Grace and Xander? Last we heard, Grace was still hesitant about getting involved.
Right, did they ever get together?
It seems like Xander's persistence paid off.
I knew it. So
Yeah.
spill the tea. What happened?
It all started with a phone call. Xander confessed his love for Grace, and to her surprise, she found herself saying it back.
Ah.
They started dating, and soon Grace was flying out to L.A. to visit Xander.
Venice Beach? Talk about a change of scenery.
It's a whole new world for Grace. She even gets this emerald ring, a little too big for her finger, but a symbol of her newfound love and the adventures ahead.
Typical Grace. But even with her new love, she hasn't forgotten about Zelda.
Of course not. Remember that former GM employee Francis mentioned?
The one who asked about Zelda at the wedding.
Well, it turns out he was a pretty high-ranking official, the head of HR.
Meaning he would have had access to Aldo's records. And that question about Zelda at the wedding, it's like he knew something.
Exactly. Grace tracks this guy down, and what she learns from him changes everything.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What did he know?
This man had met Aldo years ago, and Aldo had mentioned his wife, Zelda, and their 3 children, Leela, Polo, and Clara.
Wait a minute. Aldo admitted to having a wife and children?
I know, right? It contradicts everything we've heard from him. But there's more. Aldo also revealed that Zelda had left him and the kids.
She left him.
She ran away with another man.
This changes everything.
It does. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about Zelda.
Wow, so now Grace has a whole new mystery to solve.
Exactly. Who was this man Zelda ran away with? And where did they go?
This just got even more intriguing.
It did. And that's what keeps us hooked, right?
Mhm.
The need to uncover the truth.
So what does Grace do with this new information?
She's not giving up. She's going to dig even deeper.
Good for her. This family saga is far from over.
It isn't. We'll have to wait for part 3 to see what Grace uncovers next.
Welcome back. So last time we were left with this huge revelation, Zelda might have actually run away with another man.
It really changes the whole story, right?
Totally.
Instead of a missing woman, potential victim, we have a woman who made a choice, a difficult one, but a choice nonetheless, to leave her life behind.
It's like Zelda suddenly becomes more than just a tragic figure. She becomes a real person.
Someone who took control of her own destiny.
But remember, this information came from Aldo. The same Aldo who's been portraying Zelda as this awful person for years.
It makes you wonder what else he might be hiding.
Right. Like how much of what he said is actually true. So now Grace has this whole new mystery on her hands. Who was this man Zelda ran away with? And where did they go?
It's like the mystery just got even bigger.
Right. It's like we thought we were close to solving it, and now we're back at square one.
But maybe not entirely. Remember that box of Zelda's belongings?
The one with the photos and all that?
Yeah, and remember those report cards we talked about? And that award Zelda won for her essay.
The one about the role of women in society.
Exactly. They showed us that she was a bright, ambitious woman.
And that her potential was kind of stifled in her marriage to Aldo.
Well, it turns out that essay was actually published.
No way.
In a local newspaper.
So Zelda was a published writer.
She was. And get this. The editor who published it was a young Frank Quinlan.
Wait, Quinlan, as in Leela's first boss at the Courier?
That's the one. The man who taught her everything about journalism.
This is unbelievable. So there's a direct connection between Zelda and Quinlan. What does Grace do with this information?
Well, Quinlan passed away a few years ago. But Leela mentioned that he kept a diary.
A diary. Ooh, those are always full of secrets.
Right. And Grace manages to find it.
Tell me she found something juicy in there.
Turns out that Quinlan and Zelda met a few times after her essay was published. They had coffee, talked about writing, and it seems like there was a spark between them.
Ooh, a spark. Do you think this could be the man Zelda ran away with?
It's definitely possible, but the diary doesn't explicitly confirm a romantic relationship.
Ugh, the suspense. So what does Grace do?
Remember how Aldo called the man Zelda left him for a fancy pants?
Yeah, I thought that was a weird way to put it.
Well, Grace takes it as a clue. She goes back to Detroit and confronts Aldo.
Demanding to know more about this fancy pants.
Exactly. And eventually, Aldo cracks.
I knew she'd get it out of him. So who is it?
Aldo reveals that Zelda left him for a journalist. a man who worked for a big newspaper in Washington, D.C.
Wait a minute. A journalist in D.C.? That sounds a lot like...
Frank Quinlan?
No way! It all comes back to him.
Everything comes full circle.
So Zelda, tired of her unhappy marriage, finds solace with Frank Quinlan. It's like a forbidden love story hidden for decades.
And it makes you think, how many other stories like this are out there?
So does Grace find out what happened to Zelda and Quinlan?
That's where the novel gets really interesting. It doesn't give us all the
Oh,
answers.
come on. Don't leave us hanging.
But I think that's part of the beauty of this book. It lets us imagine our own ending.
So what do we know for sure?
We know Quinlan never married. He devoted his life to journalism, became a mentor to so many young reporters,
Yeah.
including Leela,
It's like Zelda's legacy lived on through him.
and then through Leela.
What about Zelda?
She vanished. Nobody ever heard from her again.
That's sad. But in a way, it's also kind of empowering. She chose to start a new life, to leave all the pain and unhappiness behind. Wow, what a deep dive this has been. We started with Leela and her daughters, then uncovered this whole mystery about a hidden family and a forbidden love affair, and a woman who took control of her own destiny.
It's been fascinating exploring family dynamics, secrets, and the search for identity. And while we don't have all the answers, this book definitely gives us a lot to think about.
And maybe it'll even inspire some of you to dig into your own family histories.
You never know what you might find.
That's it for a deep dive into Like Mother, Like Mother. Thanks for joining us.
And remember, the past is never truly gone. It shapes who we are, so keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those family trees growing.